Hey, everybody. I'm really excited for you to hear my interview with Super Bowl champ Jim McMahon. We did have some audio issues. During COVID, we do everything via Zoom, so we can't control it the way that we want to. But check out the episode, ignore the issues. And while you're at it, subscribe to Lunch with Stormy on Apple Podcast and leave a 5-star review. Thanks and enjoy the episode. Good afternoon, everybody. Oh, that was a hard cut. And welcome to Lunch with Stormy. I'm so excited to host my guest today, the legendary Jim McMahon. Now, I grew up in Utah, so I've known about Jim since his early college football days when he was with BYU. We became friends, and I got to know him a little bit when we did a commercial together when I was at Overstock. But what I have come to admire about him, and probably always have, is that he simply lives his life unapologetically. He's had tremendous highs and extreme lows, just like everybody. But he's not someone that I think would ever stand by the sidelines because he's always one that jumps in and gives it all no matter what he's doing. So I'm thrilled to introduce you to the man that's so multidimensional and faceted. ESPN actually named him a rebel without a pause, and I think you'll find that to be true. He's part of my favorite team of all time, the 1985 Bears, that went on to win the Super Bowl. He's a two-time Super Bowl champ. He's a dad and he's a grandfather, and he's pretty much as iconoclastic as they come. So welcome, Jim McMahon.
Hey there, Stormy.
How are you?
Doing good, doing good. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Where are you? Where are you sitting right now?
I am sitting in my home in my office in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Oh, it's not a bad place to be.
Well, it's right now it's about 118 outside, so I'm glad I'm inside.
It's kind of a bad place to be. So before we talk about you, how's the pandemic treating you?
Well, like most people, I've been stuck in my house for the last 5 months. I did make a couple of trips. I went up to Montana a few weeks ago. Had to get out of here. I went and saw some friends, played some golf for about 4 days. Actually went down to Mexico a month and a half ago, looked at some homes, and actually we ended up buying a house. So
In Mexico?
yes,
What
in
part?
Mexico. A town called San Carlos. It's about a 7-hour drive from Scottsdale here, but it's right on the water. Beautiful little town, and I'm looking forward to fixing the place up and spending some time down there.
I've been looking at Puerto Vallarta. Is it near there?
No, this is we cross the border at Nogales, and then we keep going south for another 5 hours. It's past Hermosillo. My fiance is actually from Obregon, which is about an hour and a half from San Carlos, but it's not a bad drive. You drive through the mountains, and then all of a sudden you're at the ocean. So it's a beautiful spot. It's not it's still kind of a village town, which is pretty cool. It's not like Cabo or very Americanized at all. So looking forward to spending time there.
So is Nogales terrifying?
We try to get through there as quickly as possible. We don't really go through the town. We kind of there's a road that goes out on the outskirts of town. That's usually the way we go.
It's probably a good thing.
Yeah, it's you just have to watch where you're at. But other than that, it's a great place.
I love Mexico.
Yeah, I do too.
I try to go there at least every other year, but I'm addicted to Puerto Vallarta, and I'm not sure why. I just keep going to the same place.
Yeah, I've had a timeshare in Cabo since 1998, and it goes. I think I have it for another 5 years. So at least I go to Cabo once a year and play a lot of golf down there. But here in San Carlos, there's one little course, and it's not real playable yet, I don't think. So probably doing a lot of fishing and just hanging by the pool down there.
I have a picture of you at one of the celebrity golf tournaments that someone bought me for my birthday, and you signed it. I've had it for years, but you're golfing with no shoes and a Coors Light.
Wow, that's the way to play in my book. You gotta relax. The game drives you nuts. I can't let it drive you nuts. I
Okay.
don't like shoes because I've had too many fat guys in cleats stepping on my feet all those years. So my feet don't feel good in shoes at all. So I'd rather be flip flops or barefooted.
That's a good way to be. So let's talk about that. You were born in Jersey. You moved to
Sure.
San Jose, California when you're just like a toddler and begin playing football there in high school. But then you find yourself in Roy, Utah. So just to put that in perspective for people that don't know, in 1975, I believe it was, San Jose has about 500,000 people. Roy, Utah had about 15,000. So you go from, and playing football, which I'm sure you were good back in high school too. I have a story about that later. But you wind up in Roy, Utah, hit the football. How was that move for you? How was that
It
total?
was quite a culture shock for sure. I moved to San Jose when I was almost 3 years old, so it was 1962. And I grew up with the brothers and the Mexicans playing sports, and my brothers and my dad was my coach all the way until I got to high school. But then I moved to Utah. I started as a sophomore in San Jose, and my older brother got to finish out his senior year in San Jose. He stayed there and lived with his wrestling coach. The other coaches wanted me to stay as well, but my dad said no. He's got 2 years left, and I had a police record, so I needed to get out of the state. So we ended up moving to Roy, and it was I was not used to that. There was a lot of farmland. There was a lot of open space. I went to the football practice the first day, and I didn't even go to practice. I sat in the parking lot and I watched. I wanted to see what was going on. I knew they had two senior quarterbacks coming in, and one guy was like 6'10". The other guy was about 6'1", and they were running the wishbone offense. I don't even know if people remember what the wishbone offense was. They'd have to look back to Texas, and Oklahoma. I'd only seen that on television. In San Jose, we used to throw the ball all the time. We didn't run it much. And so to try to figure out how to fake the ball to the fullback and then run out there and pitch it to somebody, that was not my kind of football. So I was contemplating even on playing. I came back from practice the first day. My dad said, "Well, did you go to practice?" I said, "Well, I went and watched." And I said, "They're running the wishbone." I said, what the hell am I going to do here? And so he said, "Well, go out there and give it a try." So I started going to practice, and obviously I'm the third team guy with the worst, the third team offensive line, and we're running stuff against the first team defense. And I remember in the first scrimmage, the first team offense went against the third team defense, and I don't think they scored. And then the number twos went against each other, and then I was with the number three offense. We went against the first team defense, and we scored 2 or 3 touchdowns, and I started after that. So I figured it out. We had a really good, fast running back. I think he was one of the fastest guys in the state back then. Mike McCoy was his name, and just get him the ball and just watch him just take off. It was pretty cool.
When were you the starting quarterback? Did that start in your sophomore year?
I started as a sophomore in California, and then when I moved to Utah, I was a junior. So I started the first game. I think we won our conference. I think that's the first time they'd ever done that. We went to state. I don't know what we finished in state. We won one and lost one, I think. My senior year, at least they changed the offense a little bit, which was nice. They didn't have the wishbone thing or the option, whatever they called it. They put 2 backs behind me, and I got to throw the ball a little bit more. So that was a lot more fun my senior year.
You leave Roy, Utah, and somehow you weren't raised LDS, were you?
No, I was raised Catholic. All my brothers and sisters were.
And you find yourself accepted at BYU. So you go from Roy, Utah to BYU. I'm sure you were a rebel without a pause in high school as well. And find yourself, so your dad was your first coach, sounds like, before high school. And then you find yourself working for an amazing coach, Lavelle Edwards, who ruled at BYU for decades. That guy was there for so long. But you begin there, you have this amazing college career, but there were some good stories within it too. So behind the scenes of Jim McMahon at BYU, because I know you've told me some amazing rebel stories.
Well, yeah, it was not. It was not what college life was supposed to be like. From just being around all the guys that I have. I played for 7 different teams in the pros. They all talked about their college all the time and how much fun they had, and it just wasn't that kind of fun for me at BYU. It was very strange. I mentioned we all grew up Catholic. My mom was actually Mormon. I had no idea she was Mormon until we moved to Utah. Because when her and my dad got married, they had to sign a paper, I guess, how you're going to raise your kids. And my dad said, "Well, they're not doing that. They're going to raise them Catholic." And so my mom never said a word. She took us to church and catechism and all that kind of stuff. And when we got to Utah, she started going to the Mormon church, and we were all like, "What's going on?" And then she told us the story. Yeah, I've always been Mormon, but just this is what happened when we got married. So I knew a little bit about the Mormons, but I'm not, in Provo, as you know, it's a whole different world. I mean, really nothing goes on outside of Provo. And, I didn't spend a whole lot of weekends there at all. I mean, I usually would spend, I'd play the game either on Friday or Saturday. And as soon as the game was over, I was in the car back to Ogden. My older brother actually was at Weber State at the time. And I had some good buddies at Weber. So I would go up there and party with them. And LaBelle would somehow hear about it. Every Monday morning I got called in for 5 years. And he would tell me what I did that weekend. And a lot of the things that I had no idea. He goes, "I knew you couldn't be at all these places at once." He goes, "So where were you?" And I'd say, "Look, Coach, I was at a party, but I was at Weber State. I was nowhere around here." And he says, "Well, somebody said something." And, so I got that for 5 straight years. I was on probation. The stories that I supposedly had did, I had no idea some of these things were being flown around about me. But
were they true?
Some of them maybe, but some of them were just totally ridiculous. I mean, I remember my senior year, I was going to miss a lot of school anyway. So our academic counselor was actually our running back coach. And he said, you might want to just drop out because you're going to be gone so much. You're going to have to take a bunch of incompletes. So you're better off dropping out. It will help your GPA, which, my GPA was below or right at 2. You had to have at least a 2 to keep playing. So I kept it right around there. And but I ended up getting kicked out right before I was going to, quit anyway. I got called into the standards office, and they told me, "Well, we have a list of people that have made all these complaints about you, and said that you were doing all these illegal things while you were here at BYU." And I kept asking, "Well, who are these? Who are some of these people that are saying this?" And they wouldn't tell me. And I got really pissed, and I said, "You know why?" I said, "Because you're all full of shit." I said, "None of those people were ever with me." And I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." I said, "I'm leaving anyway." So I left on a bad note, and that bad taste lasted about 30 years. And then I went back and got my degree, I think 5 years ago.
Amazing.
Finished up the last, I think I had four or five classes to take. And believe me, I studied more in that 1 year than I did the whole 5 years of school that I was there. It was just, I wanted to get it done. I promised my dad and my mom, and actually I promised LaBelle I'd get it done as well. Because he told me, he said, "We can't put he goes, you belong up on the stadium, and we can't put you up there until you graduate." So he goes, "Get it done before I pass away," he told me. And I did. I was happy to get it done, just, probably a month or 2 before he passed. So.
And did they retired your jersey, didn't they?
Yeah, they retired my jersey and put me up on the stadium, and I had a great weekend down there. The AD right now is Tommy Homo, who was a teammate of mine at BYU. Great guy, and he's been on me too about getting it done. So it was great to finally get that monkey off my back. And but like I told you, I had never studied so much. It was just, and at 55, that really sucks doing homework. Because I didn't like doing it at 18, and I sure as hell didn't want to do it at 55. But,
What did you graduate with?
I don't even know what the hell my major was. I changed so many times. I remember my freshman year, I would come out home late, and my roommate would still be up studying. And I'd say, what's your major? And he told me business. And I said, well, hell, that's my major. I probably better get switched, because if you're up studying, I got no shot. So I switched a couple of times. I think I ended up in communications, public speaking or something like that. I have no idea. Just a basic education is all I got.
Well, in about, I don't know what year it was, you might remember, maybe 2014 or something, Utah inducted you into their Sports Hall of Fame. And I went to that event. Lavelle was there, right?
Yeah,
Lavelle was there in support.
That was before the BYU one, yes.
But you elected, so they have the attendees or the honorees come in and they're carrying a flag of their alma mater, whatever, they're there to represent. And here comes Jim McMahon with a Roy High School flag. Do you remember that? You carried the Roy High School flag, not the BYU flag. You'll remember that?
Barely.
Yeah, you did. I remember that.
I think the football coach here at Roy High is one of my old teammates at Roy High, Freddie Fernandez, and I think he talked me into doing that. Yeah,
you did. So everybody had a college flag.
Well, they said you can carry whatever flag you wanted, either high school or your college, and I said I'll do this for Freddie, because I think he'd just gotten hired or something like that. So.
You did.
But I'm sure there was people at BYU that were mad.
Well, Lavelle was there, and I thought, what's all this about? But you hadn't graduated yet, I don't think. So maybe that's what it was about. Maybe the blood was still there, the bad blood.
Yeah, probably.
So you leave BYU. You were there 5 years. So you left you got drafted in 82. Is that right?
Correct.
And you go to the best football team you possibly could have gone to, the Chicago Bears. And everybody that doesn't know, I'm a huge Bears fan. I grew up, my dad's from Chicago, and, we were, born to bleed orange. And so it changed our Sundays, right? You go in and you're third coach, Mike Ditka. You go in with this legendary guy, and you start presenting to the world the rebel that you are. I mean, you really did, right? Coach doesn't always know, right? You change the calls in the huddle. You could see Ditka get so mad, he'd throw down the clipboard on the sidelines. And your first couple years, you guys almost make it to the playoffs. You almost make it to the playoffs. And then 1985 hits, and it was like the perfect storm for this amazing team. I don't know if they were misfits, but it's almost like you needed everyone to be a misfit in order for things to go so perfectly. And you have this incredible season with some of the best football players, I think, to ever play the game. Again, I could be biased. But you find extreme fame there, too. It was unheard of in football what was happening this year with the Bears. And the Bears always struggled anyway, I felt like being a fan that we did. But what was that like? Like, you were instantly famous, all eyes are on you, and you guys are killing it.
Well, we were actually, my first 2 years there was pretty bad. I mean, we were not very good at all. Offensive line was bad. I don't know how Peyton lasted 7 years before I got there with that line, because it was brutal. But 1984, we were a good football team. We probably had a shot. We ended up going to the NFC Championship game in '84, losing to the 49ers. I had tore my kidney up about 3/4 through that year, so I didn't get to play in the playoffs. But we come back in '85 knowing we had a good football team, and our goal was to get to the Super Bowl and win it, and that's basically how it happened. But you're right, we had a bunch of characters on that team that were not only great football players, but they were a lot of fun. we had a great time together. I remember I used to go out with my offensive lineman every Thursday night after practice, and whoever's turn it was to buy, they would pick the restaurant, and they would pay, and then we'd show up, have dinner, and then some people would go home. A few others would just keep going out and having a few more cocktails and enjoying Chicago. And Fridays were always a tough practice for us because Dick had heard about what we did on Thursday nights. But Fridays were what we call our short yardage and goal line situations. That's what we practice on Fridays. And we were always in pads, and every situation was always live. And we had no, buddy periods in our practices because we had Buddy Ryan and we had Mike Dick, and both of them were too proud to give an inch. And so, we practiced like we would play pretty much 4 games a week because Wednesday, Thursday, Friday were pretty much live practice. It was just like games. And so when Sunday came, it was almost a relief, kind of easy on Sunday because going against those guys every day was pretty tough. Incredible. But, we just, everything kind of fell into play. People stayed healthy that year. I missed 5 games in that year. My shoulder was on the verge of going to where I needed surgery. But, those guys we played well and we won all those games. We lost the one game on Monday night to Miami. But other than that, we struggled early defensively. Offense had to save those guys in the first couple of games, but once they hit their stride, they were pretty impressive to watch. And the other teams didn't want to play us.
Nobody wanted to play you guys. You guys were so good. My dad used to use your team, and then later in my business years, I would show videos of clippets from that season. Because my dad always used sports as analogies. And then once you and Ditka were on the Bears, you guys were like the gods, right? We had a picture of you in our dining room that you had signed from your BYU days. I don't even know how it happened, but there you were in our dining room. But my dad would always say, sometimes Jim throws the ball. Sometimes he has to catch the ball. Sometimes Walter Payton has to throw the ball, and sometimes he kicks the ball. And everybody just kind of played these, whatever position was needed to get the play done. And then he would always say, the coach isn't always right. You see, when, the Bears needed to get that done, that's how they would get it done. Now, my dad was a true Chicago dude, right? Through and through and through. But
most people in Chicago are huge Bear fans.
Well, every time I get in a cab there, still to this day, we're reminiscing about the 85 Bears.
Well, they've struggled for the last 35 years. So.
Yeah, it was just an iconic team. So I loved watching that season. I loved using the clips through my executive years just to teach people like that's a true team when you're able to alternate positions just simply to get the job done.
Well, we were pretty damn good for the next 3 years as well. I mean, the following year, we only lost 2 ball games. People kind of forget that. We were 14-2 that year. We lost in the opening round of the playoffs at home. We had home field advantage from 85 through 88, and we didn't win another Super Bowl. It was just too bad.
We missed those years.
Yeah, we lost the NFC Championship game at home in 88 too. So it was against the 49ers again. So I think that's the only time I lost to Joe Montana. I think I was
At least you got to play him.
Yeah, I was 4-1 or 5-1 against Joe, but the one I lost was the big one to go to the Super Bowl.
So there's a couple things that I think earned you the title of Rebel Without a Pause. One of them was that time you wore a headband. You wore a headband, and I think it was Adidas. And I'm not 100% sure why you got in trouble, other than I believe it was because they weren't a sponsor.
Correct.
But
they weren't paying the NFL then.
They weren't paying the NFL. So even to wear a headband
back then, but that was the Rebel. They say I was.
Did you know that?
They fined me $5,000 in the playoffs for wearing the Adidas, and I couldn't understand why, because I'd worn the headband throughout the year. Nobody said a word to me, and all of a sudden we're in the playoffs and it's a big deal. And they said, "Oh, we're going to fine you if you wear that." I said, "How can you do that?" "Well, Adidas is not paying the league." I said, "Well, that's not my problem. Adidas was paying me."
Were they paying you?
Yeah, I was getting a little payment for the shoes and the headband, but so the following week I figured, I couldn't afford the $5,000, that they just fined me, because the Bears weren't going to pay it, and so I wasn't making a hell of a lot of money. I had to deal with George Hallis originally, so my contract was not very good. So anyway, what the hell was I talking about?
The headband.
Oh yeah. So I figured, what am I going to do now it's the championship game, NFC championship. And so right before kickoff, because I wore the Adidas thing throughout the warm-ups and stuff. So I go back in the locker room and I said, I know I can't wear this. I'm just sitting there. I had an empty band. I just put his name on it for some reason, Pete Rozelle's name. And so as I'm walking out of the tunnel, John Madden was doing the game, and there was a camera there, and I just kind of let him see what I had written, and he kind of just laughed his butt off about that. But I didn't get fined that week. Pete actually called me and thanked me for the free advertising. And I said, Pete, this is not, why are you making such a big deal out of this? It's not my fault that they're not paying you. And so at that time, there was 2 weeks before the championship game and the Super Bowl. And somehow I got a hold of the rule book. I'm going through the rule book, and I figured, look, they shouldn't have been able to fine me the $5,000. So I'm going to mess with them in the Super Bowl. And I got sent thousands of headbands from all over the country, just with people's names on them, Fred, Joe, whatever. So I decided, I'm going to wear a bunch of charities on my head, because if they fine me for wearing charities, they're going to look like idiots. And so Adidas offered me a good chunk of change to wear the headband. And I told them, I said, look, they fined me $5,000 in the playoffs. I'm figuring the most they can fine me is $25,000. And Adidas, I think, had offered me $50,000 at the time. So I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to make money either way. But then I figured out, hey, they can't fine me for this. And so all during the pregame warm-up in the Super Bowl, I have the Adidas headband on, and the head referee's chasing me around the field, saying, hey, I can't let you on the field. Yeah, I know. And then the national anthem comes. I'm standing by Walter. Right next to me is the head referee. And as soon as the anthem's over, I go to put on my helmet, and he grabs me and says, I can't let you on the field. I looked at him. I said, I know, but you can't do a damn thing about this. And I took my headband and I pulled it down around my neck. And you can see Adidas clearly in every picture that was taken of me that day. And I just threw on I think I started with juvenile diabetes because my attorney's son was diabetic. I started with that. And then every series that I come off the field, I would change to a different charity. And I didn't get fined. I got my money from Adidas. The very next year, there was a whole bunch of new rules about what you can and can't wear where. So I said, Pete, you made this a big deal, and now you're coming out looking like idiots. So.
And then was there a time that you mooned the reporters or the folks on the field? Did you moon them on the field?
No, there was a helicopter that was buzzing our practice, and it was a day or two before the game, I think. And the whole conversation that week is I got drilled in the not the hip bone, but just below that, right in my left cheek. And the week before, or 2 weeks before. And so the whole left side of my butt was just black and huge. And so they kept asking me about it every day. I got tired of telling them about it. So when that helicopter kept buzzing, I mean, he was pretty low to the field. And we were doing our stretching anyway. We were out there in shorts. So I dropped trowel and let them see it. I said, here, now this should take all the questions away.
Did you get fined for that?
No, I didn't get fined for that. For some reason, they must have liked the view.
Yeah, no sponsorship was involved there. There was no way to monetize it.
I thought I'd at least get those pillows you can sit on when you're driving if you got hemorrhoids.
The donuts?
Yeah.
The donut pillows. So you stay with the Bears through 1988, then you go on Chargers, Eagles, I think you did something with the Cardinals. I'm not sure the timeline there, but you
Vikings
wind up
first,
the
Cardinals,
Vikings. Yeah, you wound up
then
with
Cleveland, then Green Bay.
then Green Bay.
Yeah.
So Mike Holmgren's the Holmgren.
Correct.
Yeah, he's a coach. He was a great coach too, an amazing coach. But you win a Super Bowl. You're on a Super Bowl winning team again with our biggest competitors, but that's okay because every Super Bowl team gets to go to the White House. And
except for the 85 team.
Except for the 85 team. So, but when
we finally went, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago.
With Obama, right?
Yeah, Obama was in office, but yeah, I went first with the Packers.
But you go with the Packers and you wore a Bears shirt.
I did it for when I kept it on when I met Clinton and when we had our photo, but I wasn't parading around in it. But I had told all my teammates, I said, look, I said, when we go, I said, I'm bringing my Bear jersey. I said, we didn't get to go back in '85. And they're like, why didn't you go? And I said, well, there was a thing called the space shuttle that blew up about 2 or 3 days after we won. And all the focus was on that, naturally. But I said, they probably could have squeezed us in within those 30 years somewhere, but they didn't. So that's the reason I wore the jersey. But I explained to all my teammates, they had no problem with it. I told Holmgren he didn't really have a problem with it. The only guy that was really pissed was our defensive coordinator, Fritz Shermer. And I figured out why, because Fritz was the defensive coordinator for the Rams when I was in Chicago when we beat them. That's why he was mad that I had the Bear jersey on. So.
Well, I loved that as a fan. I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that you did that.
Yeah, Clinton was like, "Why you got that on?"
That sounded just like him.
Yeah, and I just said, "Well, because we didn't get to go because of the space shuttle." Oh yeah, I remember that.
That's right.
That was about it.
So all those coaches, who was your favorite coach or the one that impacted you the most?
The favorite was Mike Holmgren. I thought he did things the right way. We worked when it was time to work, and then when you had your time off, he let you go. I spent 7 years with Ditka. Those were interesting 7 years.
He's a tough one.
Yeah, he was a tough guy. Great football player. I've always told everybody that I would love to play with the guy. He was a great football player. And had he ever been in my huddle, he would have understood me a hell of a lot better too. So, because he thought I did things just to piss him off. And I said, look, I'm trying to win games. And this is how I was taught, back in college when, I had pretty much free reign in college because the coach our offensive coordinator told us if we saw something that we could exploit, do it. You have the green light. So I kept that green light all the way through my career.
Do you stay in touch with any of the guys that you played with, either on the Bears or just in general? Is there like an old football guys club that you guys?
A lot of us get to see each other. Well, we used to at all these different golf events and charity events around the country. But with this COVID stuff, everything's been canceled. I got to see an old teammate of mine from Philadelphia, Ron Heller, up in Montana a few weeks ago. I get to see Jimbo Covert, Jay Hilgenberg, Richard Dent, Otis Wilson. A lot of these guys play in a lot of the same tournaments that I go to as well. So it's always nice to see those guys and reminisce. And it's still pretty much like we just left the locker room yesterday. Same old stories and laughs. And it's always a good time.
So one more question before we move on to your next venture. But what are your thoughts on the players taking a knee? Like during the
I think it's ridiculous. I think Goodell is kind of ruining the brand. I mean, everybody's playing for it's a big corporation, and why are they disrespecting the flag? I don't know. They don't like the country. I heard Dicka's interview. He said, "Get out." They're making millions of dollars in this country. There's a lot of other platforms where you can protest, all these social medias, this and that, but to have guys that they're all taking a knee, coaches are caving in. I think it's ridiculous.
It definitely, politics are crossing into everything that we do right now.
Right. They talk about, Black Lives Matter. Well, tell that to the people in Chicago. I mean, how many black people get killed every weekend in Chicago? It's crazy. Nobody mentions them. You don't see them on the news, but there's 50, 60 people every week getting shot there, and it's going up. It's going crazy. So, all this, people are donating money to Black Lives Matter when all that money is ending up in the Democrats' pockets. I don't get it, and how they can't figure it out. It's right on the computer, and so there's something else is going on. I don't know what the hell it is.
It's so complicated. It's hard to say. It's a hard stance to even take. And you always do. You always take a stance. One of the things I just adore about you.
That's just my belief. The flag is for the country and the people that have shed their blood and their lives for this, for our way of life, and to disrespect them like that I don't think is right.
I understand that. So we crossed paths again just a few years ago with your cannabis advocacy, and you were or are a world-class athlete, phenomenal in all you've done. But you did beat your body up. Football today is a little different. A lot of timeouts, a lot of don't hit that hard. But back in the day, in your day, it wasn't like that. You guys were hitting each other hard. I think that was part of the game, is how hard, like, let's intentionally hurt people. But
that's how it was. I mean, that's the way it was played. I mean, people got hit, people got hurt, and that was all part of the game. That's just football's a brutal sport, and we all knew we're going to get, by the time we're my age, things are going to be broken down. My shoulders, my knees, my hip, at least my hips are okay, but my ankles, my hands, obviously my neck and my head have been a big focus in the last 10 years. But
weren't you didn't do the feet first. You were like the diving slider.
That's because when you slide, the ball gets placed where the back of your body is. So usually if I was running, I was trying to get a first down. So I wanted to make sure I got the first down.
Well, you broke a lot of records.
The one time that I did slide is when I got hit in my hip just before the Super Bowl. So I slid. I'm not supposed to get hit. I still got drilled. So I said, to hell with it. I'm going to go head first from now on.
But it was those injuries that you've referred to cannabis as a godsend, right? And I believe I read that you were on 100 Percocets a month just to deal with the pain and get through your days. And cannabis,
guys that take that many in 2 or 3 days. So
that's insane. Yeah. That is just insane.
But I haven't had one since let's see, I retired in 97. I probably took them for another 4 years. So probably since early 2000, I haven't had a pain pill. I've been using cannabis pretty much my whole life. I enjoyed it the first time in 1973. I was 14 years old. And all I knew then was that it made me sleep, made me eat, made me feel better. And since I've done all these cannabis expos around the country, and I speak with a Dr. Uma Danabalan, she's a world-renowned cannabis expert. She's a Harvard-trained doctor, and she's taught me more of the medical side of the plant. And I said, Doc, and I told her that same thing. I said, all I know, Doc, is it made me eat, sleep, and feel better. She goes, that's exactly what it's supposed to do. She says, we have receptors up and down our bodies for this plant. It's called the endocannabinoid system. And, she went through this whole spiel, and I'm like, Doc, I don't really need to know all that. As long as you tell me it's good for me, I'm going to continue to use it.
So did you discover that intuitively? Like, instead of taking the Percocet, you would use cannabis and it just automatically worked for you? Or did you play around with the dosages, or, smoke it versus eat it versus use the tincture?
Yeah, I've tried everything. I pretty much use everything. I eat it, smoke it. I use the topicals where it's needed. It's crazy. It's an anti-inflammatory and it's a neuroprotectant. So if anybody should be using this, it's guys that are banging their heads together, hockey, football. I mean, pretty much every sport nowadays it gets pretty violent. But it's made for our bodies. I mean, we're supposed to be using this plant. We're not supposed to be using these things that the companies are, whatever's even in them. Who knows? And I haven't had, I couldn't sleep on those opioids. You can't go to the bathroom, which was crazy as well. And they keep you in a fog. I was never quite there. I couldn't remember half the things that I was supposed to be doing. A lot of that was the opioids, but a lot of that was also with the head problems and stuff that I've had. But yeah, cannabis it's the best thing on the planet.
Did they drug test for cannabis in the NFL when you were there?
Yeah, yeah. Before 1985, I believe, and the cannabis was not a big deal. I remember being around with some guys 1 or 2 days before the test, and we're enjoying some cannabis, and we never even worried about it. But then after '85, they started cracking down because Lenny Bias had died. I believe his name was Don Rogers. He was a football player. Lenny was obviously basketball. But those two guys died of cocaine, or cocaine related. And but then they really started cracking down on everybody. But we knew when the test was going to be. You come back for training camp in July, you're going to get tested. And if you pass everything, if you're clean, they can randomly test you throughout the year. But the only thing they can bust you for is steroids throughout the year if you're clean, prior. So if you go in and give them a clean sample, the next time you get tested, you can actually smoke a joint in front of them, do a line. They can't do a damn thing about it because that's the rule. That's how stupid the rules are.
But, that's not really a rule then. It's a suggestion.
I never failed a drug test, and because I knew right at June 1st I'd stop, give myself 30 to 45 days to let it get out of your system. That's why it stays in your system so long, because we've been deprived of it for so long. Our body just hangs on to it, wants to keep it. And so I'd give myself those 45 days. I'd be clean, take my tests, and get on my scooter, go out in the cornfield, and enjoy a nice fatty.
And so during the year, during the season, would you be tested and positive, but nobody, like it didn't make the press?
Yeah, nobody would say, they couldn't say anything anyway. So nobody ever told me I failed a test.
Well, times have changed. I think they're going back now, but you hear about, who was it? I don't want to say the wrong name, but I feel like it was a guy that just kept smoking. And it was like, why is this football player continuing to use cannabis?
Ricky Williams?
Well, it probably was Ricky Williams, actually. Yeah. Yeah. And then he just walked away and said, I'm going to go use cannabis. He's big in the industry too.
Yeah, I'm trying to get even further into the industry. I've been trying to get involved with a company that's, doing things right, doing the testing, doing the organic grow, stuff like that. I've seen so many facilities from Washington, Oregon, California, Colorado. Some of them are amazing. Some of them, a little wishy-washy. Don't want to be involved with them. But I think I finally found a really, really excellent organization. I'm hoping to be part of that pretty soon.
I hope so too. You did try to get a dispensary in Arizona, though, didn't you?
Yeah, but the red tape is just ridiculous. It's I don't really want to be in the dispensary business. I want to be like where you're growing, where you're manufacturing, where you're distributing. That's where I want to be.
Yeah, it's good to understand the plant medicine. I think it.
Oh yeah, I've learned. Like I said, I've learned so much in the last 5 years. I knew all along how it made me feel, but now that I know how much better it is for me, I've tried. I've got my mom take. My mom's got a really bad back, and I've got her taking some gummies now that she can handle, and she feels a heck of a lot better. My dad always said, "No, I'm not going to do that stuff. I don't want to get high," because I gave him some topical that had some THC in it. And I said, "Just put it on your knee. You're not going to get high. You're not going to
Right.
And he started using it on his knee when he had his knee replaced. And within 2 weeks, he called me up. Hey, you got any more of that weed stuff? My knee feels great. I said, I told you, this is what this plant does. It's supposed to heal you. That's what this plant's here for us.
And the topicals are interesting because the THC within the topical for me absolutely matters.
Oh yeah.
It absolutely makes my shoulder feel better.
Well, that's the pain relief part of the plant.
But it took a minute.
It's got so many other great benefits. I mean, it helps so many different ailments. I mean, you just have to figure out what's best for you.
And how's your health today? How are you doing today? All your aches and pains.
Other than being a little sore because I had about 150 tons of dirt dumped on my driveway that I've been shoveling into I'm filling up a couple of koi ponds that I had. And in this heat, boy, I'm feeling kind of sore, but the rest of my body feels pretty good. I went to Medellin, Colombia in December. Actually, 2 years ago, I had some stem cells put in my right shoulder because I thought I needed another surgery. I couldn't get to the point where I couldn't really move it. And the guy put some stem cells in here. But here in the States, they can only use up to 1 million at a time, 1 million cells. And so it felt good for about 6 months. And then the pain came back, and I went to Medellin. The company is actually based here in Phoenix. It's called BioAccelerator. And they do all their procedures in Medellin. What a beautiful city, home of Pablo Escobar. But it was a great place, beautiful facility. It's actually in a huge mall that's right in the middle of town. And the medical facility's in there, and there's also a hotel where we stayed. It's about a 5-minute walk. And you go to the facility, I had 275 million put in my both shoulders, both elbows, both knees. They put them in my neck. And then they also put them in my spine, so they went up into my brain. And now my body this was in December, so it's been 8 months. My body feels damn good. My knees haven't bothered me at all. My right shoulder is still a little messed up. He told me that I did have a tear in the shoulder. That's why the pain's been so bad, but it hasn't been bad at all for about 8 months.
That's amazing. I didn't realize there was a limit on the number of stem cells that we did in the US.
Well, here in the US, they don't want you healthy. They want you taking their pills and feeling like crap all the time. But there they want to heal people. They'll give you as many as you need to get the job done. And like I said, right now my knees feel like it. I had 12 knee operations. I don't feel like I've had any.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So
my headaches haven't been as bad.
Is that right?
I get these extreme headaches when my spinal fluid starts to back up. And actually, I need to go see my doctor. I haven't seen him in about 7 months. But but the headaches aren't as severe, and so I'm hoping that next time I go to Medellin, I might do that again, because I had really bad headaches for about 4 days after this procedure. Because they said when these things get up into your brain, they're a little bigger than I guess that normally is floating around in there. So yeah, once I got over that, my head's been feeling pretty good.
That's incredible. I think we've got a lot to learn from other countries on, well, plant medicine is one of them. And then, the rejuvenation that other countries have taken so much further than we dare to.
We've been lied to over 100 years about cannabis. And it's finally, you still hear some reporters say, oh, there's no medical evidence. There is tons of medical evidence about this plant. It's all been buried. But it's finally coming to light, and people are, once the stigma gets over with, people still kind of are so worried about, oh, somebody can't see me using this or whatever.
Well, it definitely takes people like you who had, such an amazing, this podcast, we talk about reinvention, we reinvent ourselves, but you've had such a spotlight on you, endured the injuries, and then to be able to come full circle and step forward as an advocate is amazing. And I think that's what is starting to shed some of the fear and the stigma that surrounds it. And I think it's continued to be needed.
No doubt.
Well, we are going to have to bounce in a minute, but given COVID, I know you're digging koi ponds and shoveling dirt, but what advice, you've come through so much, endured a lot. do you have any advice out there for people who might be struggling or, look into how they fill their time or stay well throughout this time?
Find something that you enjoy doing. I don't really enjoy shoveling dirt, but I need to get these things done. But you just got to find something that you enjoy. Spend this time. You probably don't get to spend this much time with family and friends, and than you do pretty much any other time of year. So that's what I've been doing, just hanging out. Luckily, my youngest son lives in my guest house. It's 50 feet away, and my oldest daughter lives about 15 minutes from me, and she had a baby 10 months ago.
Congrats.
So he was my fourth grandchild. And I've got another one due in October, another boy. So there's only one girl so far.
Thank goodness you got one.
Yeah. She's in Chicago. She's a pistol. But it's great when I get to see them, and hopefully they'll get to come spend some time in Mexico with me at the new house.
Yeah, hopefully we all do.
Yeah,
Actually.
come on down. We got.
So I have to tell you something. I have decided to run for the State House of Representatives here in Utah, in my little county in Tooele, as a Democrat. I was going to ask about your political views, but you did sprinkle them without. But the challenge that brings as a Democrat here. So do you endorse me?
Of course, I'd endorse you, Stormy.
You better say
yeah.
yes.
I've never voted, but I'm gonna vote this year because
it's an important year for voices to all be heard.
This could be the change of America if something doesn't go right here. So
we just all have to get along. We have to all get along. But
they got to shut out this state-run news operation, then we can get along.
That's right. There's a lot going on there. But I love spending time with you. I was telling you how much before we started recording, how much I miss humans. So it's really good to see your electronic face. And
it's good to see you. It's been a long time.
It's been too damn long. I can't take it. I can't wait for the vaccines or whatever it's going to take till we all, and especially the cannabis community, getting together is always such a good time. And, there's those people that we've been seeing for years. I haven't seen them for a minute. And you're one of them, and I miss them. But where can people find you, follow you, stay in touch with you?
Well, I wish I even knew my social media handles or whatever you call them.
I think it's Jim McMahon 9. I'm not sure, but it might be.
Yeah, my son does all that for me. So,
but I know that you're under Jim McMahon.
Yeah, if there's something important that comes through, he'll send me the link or note or whatever it is you do. But yeah, and then I'll write something back and he'll post it or whatever. I don't know how to do. I'm barely doing the Zoom thing right now.
Well, I appreciate it because I have loved having you on, and I said in the beginning, but I really do appreciate you and the way that you've lived your life and been vulnerable to people, but always came through it, and so strong. And again, unapologetic. Carrying that Roy football flag versus the BYU one was a big statement at that time, and it was talked about in Utah. But you're a pleasure. And so if anybody wants to follow Jim McMahon, that's the handles that he uses, because I myself follow. Listen to us on Apple Podcasts. Give us a rating. We'll take 5 stars. You can always follow me. I'm under Stormy Simon. We're one of those people. We don't come up with fancy names. We're too old for that. We just go by the only name we know.
I'll have Zach give you that 5-star rating.
He needs to. Tell Zach to do that.
I will.
And thank you so much for joining me.
Okay, Stormy. Thank you.
Peace out. Be safe. Bye. Thanks, Jim.
Oh, thank you. That was fun.
Yeah, stay in touch.
Okay, babe. We'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.